The PlayStation 5 is barely 6 months old, and we're still technically in a pandemic, so it'd be easy to understand why there perhaps wouldn't be big exclusives releasing right now. With that being said, they somehow managed to get some pretty huge games out into the wild within the first half of the year on the market, with the latest being Returnal. Now obviously a lot of people are hugely interested to see how Returnal plays and what all the noise is about, which is exactly why I wanted to review the game for everyone, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea why I'm back with reviews, and I hope you give my review a chance. Hey everyone, Crapgamer of Crapgamer Reviews coming at you with a brand new review. Now I wanted to fit in with the cool kid reviewers, so I'll start off by saying I in fact did not beat Returnal. I repeat, I did not beat Returnal. Heck, if I knew you could be a pro reviewer without actually beating games, I would have gone pro a long time ago. What's next? Using someone else's footage for a game you didn't beat yourself? Anyway, Housemarque actually are no strangers to PlayStation gamers and fans alike. They actually did one of the best PlayStation 4 launch games, which was Resogun. Here's a small clip if you needed a refresher on what that game is exactly. Now, over the years they've done a few arcade titles like this, but as a studio, they decided to up the ante and go full-on AAA with Returnal. Apparently doing smaller games wasn't actually making them any money, even though all of their games have reviewed extremely well over the years, which is a little bit strange when you think about it, because you'd think that something was a big hit like Resogun, that maybe they made something off of it, but apparently they didn't make anything off of it. Now I admit I was a huge Resogun fan, and an interesting fact is that Resogun was actually one of the games that was Sony's equivalent of Xbox's Play Anywhere. If you bought a version of it on the PlayStation 4, you also got a copy on the PlayStation 3 as well as the PlayStation Vita, which is kind of cool. Not that too many people actually used this program, but it's a nice bit of information nonetheless, and it goes to show that Sony was actually ahead of the curve way back in 2013. Now, graphically, Returnal has some good spots and some bad spots. For the most part, the game looks very good. We know it's actually running at 1080p with some upsampling to 1440p and 60 frames per second, with some occasional dips and drops, but overall it's a really solid performance. Now some of the textures up close can look less than great. There can be some issues with texture filtering and things like that, where the textures look muddy and kind of soupy, but for the most part everything is looking very good and crisp. And I have to admit the colors and animations are very well done. This might not be the best looking next generation game, but it certainly makes ample use out of Sony's new PlayStation 5. I particularly feel like the sound and audio really set a tone for the game itself, and the DualSense is used very well. You feel super connected to the world and immersion, and it's really something that we haven't really felt before in any game. The immersion level is beyond belief. This is definitely a game in which next-gen hardware is being used to the best, and I for one can't wait to see more of this type of thing in the future. If you remember, I was talking about how before the PlayStation 5 even came out that gamers were asking for more immersion and better immersion, and the solid-state drive has helped that tremendously with almost instant load times, and we have 3D audio which super take advantage of these type of games with the atmosphere and things like that, and they've really just done a fantastic job with them. Now, Returnal at its core is a third-person shooter, which is what people consider a roguelite, which I'm going to read the definition pretty much verbatim of what that is, and hopefully it gives a little bit of a better understanding, because I know many of you probably have no clue what it means, and don't feel bad because I didn't either. With computers and video game consoles capable of more advanced graphics and gameplay, numerous games have emerged that are loosely based on the classic roguelike design, but diverge in one or more features. Many of these games use the concepts of procedurally generated maps and permadeath, which, by the way, this is a game that actually uses procedurally generated maps. Basically, when you die and you come back, the maps can look different and it's procedurally generated. So that's something to keep in mind when you're playing the game as well. While moving away from tile-based movements and turn-based gameplay, often using another gameplay genre such as action games or platformers. Other titles deriving from roguelike games are based on the observation that traditional roguelikes are difficult with a steep learning curve, and a player may never complete these games over numerous play sessions, making these titles difficult to sell to a broader audience. Now, these new games would include elements to reduce the difficulty as to draw in the larger audience themselves. But many games with some of the interpretation elements call themselves roguelike, but bear little resemblance to the original Rogue, causing confusion and the dilution of the term itself. As such, the term roguelike or roguelike has been used to distinguish these games that possess some, but not all, of the interpretation features from those that exactly meet the Berlin roguelike definition. The phrase procedural death labyrinth has also applied to such games, as they can retain the notion of permadeath and random level generation, but lack the other high value factors normally associated with roguelike games. Now, roguelites are generally much shorter games intended to be winnable within a single gaming session, in contrast to traditional roguelikes that are designed for multiple sessions of gameplay, or they can be played indefinitely. These games thus may have more narrative focus to tie into a shorter game. Associated with their short length, many roguelikes feature a metagame whereby achieving certain goals will unlock persistent features. So basically, they're saying, you play these games, which, like Returnal, has different runs that you go through, and you unlock various things, and then you can go back and unlock different areas that maybe you weren't before, and every time you die, a procedurally generated area gets procedurally generated, so no two games are exactly alike. So if you're like me, you definitely needed that definition. I kept hearing people throw around the term and had no freaking clue what anyone was actually talking about. Now, in Returnal, there's different biomes, and you kind of progress through these biomes, and you go through each of them, and each of them has a boss fight. Now, I can't get past the third biome, which is said to be one of the tougher ones. Now, each run in Returnal can last a couple of hours or more, depending on your own playstyle. Some weapons you actually do get to keep even if you die, but for the most part, you pretty much have to start over completely back at the ship. The game has a steep learning curve, and I feel like that wasn't something that was on display when they were marketing the game. With that being said, if you're a gamer that doesn't mind some frustration, you definitely should give it a try. Just be prepared to die a lot. I also wanted to point out that this game has no save feature whatsoever. They've talked about maybe implementing one, and I've seen people take both sides to this. For me personally, if you're a couple hours into a run and there's a glitch or an error or your game crashes, you've just lost hours of gameplay. So that's why I think that there should be some kind of save feature. I think that also that you should be able to play without one if you choose so. So I think that they should probably put one in and some kind of checkpoint feature. And if you really want to go hardcore and play without one, then play without one. I think that's perfectly fine. But because the game had so many issues, they basically left you in a kind of a state where so many people had game crashes and problems that it made it unfun for a lot of people. Now, with that being said, I totally support the idea that the developers should be able to add in what they want. The only way to really, let's say you're 2 hours into a 3-hour run, and you have something you have to do, you can set your console to rest mode and that'll work. But if there happens to be an update while you're away, it'll reset your game. So I think a lot of people have to keep that in mind when they think about picking up this game. There's no way to save it. You got to have time to play it, and you have to make sure that you set your console into a certain mode, which is rest mode, which could in fact be interrupted. So we'll have to see how it goes. Now, there's not a ton of story to be told here, and that's both a good and a bad thing. The entire idea behind the game is that you're stuck in a loop and you're trying to progress further and further to break the cycle. The game sets a very dark and ominous tone very early on, and even more surprising is the horror elements that come out of nowhere. The game can really make you jump at certain points in time, and now if you're a fan of like Metroid games, you'll be right at home here as well. I feel like they've captured that explore, die, repeat type of gameplay very well. Also, you'll have to get certain abilities and then go back to places that you have already explored in order to unlock certain areas that you weren't able to previously. Again, think Metroidvania type of game. Overall, Returnal is a mixed bag. It's a new IP coming at a time when Sony allegedly isn't taking any more risks, but the game is a huge risk and not everyone is going to like this type of game. I enjoy it, but I highly doubt I'll ever finish it. Should you take my word as the gospel? Absolutely not. Don't do it. I'm just some random internet person who has an opinion. I always say it's up to the individual to decide if a game is right for them or not. A lot of people take exception to the $70 price point, which is understandable. But some people claim Returnal is their early pick as Game of the Year. I'm sure those people have no problem paying for the game. My score for Returnal is an 8 out of 10. It does a lot right if you're looking for a bullet hell Metroidvania roguelite style of game. Hopefully this review has been informative and fun, and I'll do many more in the future. I know obviously people are going to want to have me review certain things. If you have any ideas that you'd like me to review, please let me know. Thank you very much. I'm humbled. Please like, share, subscribe. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.